Good morning, Year 7, and this is our lesson 1 for week 4. This is the alternate work. So if your slide doesn't say alternate work up the top, you are on the wrong video. Please make sure you're going to the right videos. All right, let's move on. Lesson 1. Now, if you're looking at this on any other sort of device, these Magikarp would actually be flipping and hitting the things up here. Unfortunately, it doesn't work for some reason for Shobi, so I apologize. So, context. Context is a range of personal, social, historical, cultural, and workplace conditions in which a text is responded to and composed, which basically means all the stuff happening around the poem. Everything that is around it in the real world, how it was written, why it was written, all that stuff, that impacts how the poem should be read. So, context is super important for everybody when we're talking about why poems are doing what they do. So this week we will explore the when, where, and who of the poem we read. That helps us understand context. For example, when. So when was the poem written? What was the world like during this time? The world changes, and not only does the world change, but language changes. So if we were reading a poem from a different time, the word maybe have a different meaning as to what we use now. I think it was last week or the week before we looked at a poem that used the word dumb, not meaning the way we would use dumb, it was meaning something else. And so that changes the way we understand a poem once we understand what the words meant for that time period. So it's really important that we look into when the poem was written. Where was the poem written? What do we know about that place, and what should we research? That's really important for this week too, because we're going to be looking at haikus. Plot twist, um, or spoiler ahead, I guess. Um, and it's really important that we look at the culture behind it. So when you're reading a poem that was written by someone from Japan, it's important we understand why Japan is. Sorry, I just realized how fast I was talking. I apologize. What Japan is doing in that time period that the poem was written. And then who wrote the poem, what happened to them in their life, and who are they? So who wrote the poem? Why is it important we know who wrote the poem? Because they'll have different layers to their poetry that if, say, another person who wrote on the same subject would have their own layers to add to the poem. So it's super important that we understand the when, the where, and the who, so then we can understand the context. Okay, like I said, we're going to be looking at haikus this week. So, a haiku is a short Japanese form of poetry. And because nature plays a large role in Japanese society, it is usually the main subject for a haiku. So, their poets usually write about their gardens, the animals, trees, water, and the sky. A haiku almost always has 3 lines. The first line has 5 syllables, second line has 7 syllables, and then the last line has 5. This rule has changed a little bit since haikus have been used in different cultures, but it is important to remember that it is a lesson about syllables and how many syllables can you fit into a line, and that number will be consistent. So let's just say you're reading a poem and it only has 3 syllables, then that third line will also only have 3 syllables. So the important thing to remember about a haiku is that it's all about the number of syllables that you can fit into a line, rather than all the other techniques that we've already looked at, like simile, metaphor, onomatopoeia, all that kind of stuff. It's very rare that you find that sort of figurative language technique in a haiku. And if you do, it's normally only one because they are quite short. They are only 3 lines. So unlike many other poems, haikus don't need to rhyme. Okay, and that's what makes them so easy and fun to write. The thing you have to remember is syllables, and that it's normally about some sort of like natural phase of life. So here's just a little refresher on how syllables work. Okay, so if you can hear me clapping, I'll try doing it near the microphone so you can. The first line has 5 syllables. So refreshing and cool. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, the next line is 7 syllables, which is 7. So love is a sweet summer rain. And then 5 syllables again, that washes the world. That's the best way to work out how many syllables you have in a line, is how many times can you clap on the beat. So my name, Jennifer, has Jennifer. That's 3 syllables in my name. Think about your own name. How many syllables are in your name? How do you know? How many claps do you do? It's a natural rhythm that you should try to find that all words have, but it's super important that we recognize it when we're doing haiku. So we're just going to look at the context or the where, who, and when of this poem over here called Bamboo Grove by Matsuo Basho or Bosho. Again, see, 3 lines. It's very short. Let's just have a read. Song of the Cuckoo in the grove of sorry, in the grove of great bamboos, moonlight seeping through. That's it. That's the whole poem. But it's such a beautiful collection of words that it creates an image in your head, even though it's only 3 lines long. Okay, so let's have a look at our poem here. Question 1. Where is this poem set and how do you know? So, where are we in the poem? What is the poet looking at when we look at that? Think about note line 2 just here and what sort of location is it giving us? What is a cuckoo? Okay, just Google it. You can, it's very easy. Just open up a new tab and you write cuckoo define. Um, Okay, and here we go. It is a long-tailed, medium-sized bird, typically with a grey or brown back and barred or pale underparts. Many cuckoos lay their eggs in the nests of small songbirds. Okay, so it's basically just a pretty bird that sings. Okay, so go back to here, and so what is a cuckoo? It's a bird. Even if you didn't Google it though, there's enough context in this poem for you to guess. Okay, song of the cuckoo. How many animals do we know that sing? There's basically just one type. So even without Googling, we could have made a pretty good educated guess just looking at that first sentence. What is the purpose of this poem? No, this is your opinion. Why do you think this guy wrote it? I believe it's because he was inspired, probably sitting outside of his little cottage or wherever he lived with the bamboo garden in front of him, hearing the sound of the birds. It's nighttime, so the moonlight is coming in through the bamboo shoots. So I think he just wanted to capture that moment, which is, I think, a lot of what a lot of haikus are about. What image does this poem create? So when I said um, these 3 lines are trying to force you to think of an image. Okay, so I want you to write in the best way you can what that image looks like, and then you're going to draw it. Oops, sorry, that should say your shobi, not your shubi. My bad. They're going to draw it. Now, when I think of this poem, I don't actually see the bird because it doesn't say that he can see it. He can just hear it. So I think of the bamboo, it's nighttime, the moon is coming in through the leaves and the trunks of the bamboo. You can hear this noise in the background. So that's what I would draw, but it's up to you. And that's it. This is the first lesson done and dusted, and I'll see you guys in lesson 2. Bye.